Hey everybody. It looks like everybody was all clear on points of confusion for module 3, which is awesome to see. And now you're in module 4 and your all's story and 6 frame assignments looked super good. So I don't really have anything to clarify this week, but instead of just like not making a video, I'm going to make a video about something that might be inspiring for your next project, which is time and sequence. With this time and sequence assignment, I want you to really think about how photography has an ability slash inability to record time. So I wanted to share with you the work of an artist named Chris McCaw. This is Chris McCaw right here. He uses big old film cameras like this. He primarily makes his own cameras. So here's a good example of what his cameras look like. Primarily homemade cameras, and he uses lenses off of World War II era spy planes. So they're giant, giant lenses. Um, Chris McCaw is a super interesting artist, and I love the things that he does. Primarily because he came to this discovery of making photos like this as a mistake. So I'm going to talk to you about Chris McCaw's Sunburn series. So that's a series of his work. I think this was around early 2000s, maybe 2001, 2002, somewhere in there. Chris McCaw was out camping with his friends, and he had his large format film camera. So a big camera like one of these things over here, pointed up at the stars because he was going to record a photo of star trails, just like I showed you in the time and sequence assignment, how to record star trails. So he had his camera set up, pointed east in the night sky. He opened the shutter. The film is exposing. Something to know about photographic film is it is plastic, clear plastic coated in gelatin and silver. The gelatin is the glue that holds the light sensitive silver onto the piece of plastic, which is the film. And so Chris McCaw's making his long exposure of the night sky. He was just, he's out camping with friends. So he's like, I'm just going to let it expose for a couple hours. So he opened the shutter and he walked away from his camera and went back to the campfire and did what sometimes young people do when they're out camping. And he was drinking and ended up passing out. Forgot about his camera. He woke up in the morning. The sun had already risen. And he's like, oh no, I forgot about my camera. And at that point, right, the sun had already risen. It was already overexposed. The film was already going to be like massively overexposed. And so he runs to his camera and he realizes that there is smoke billowing out of his camera. That is not something you typically want to see in either a digital or a film camera. And so he was like, oh crap, obviously ruined that sheet of film. So he took the film out of the camera, and with those large cameras, when you take the film out, it's in a light-proof carrier, so you can't actually see the physical film until you're into it. Well, you can't see it in a dark room either, but you can't actually get to the actual piece of film until you're in the absolute dark. And so, right, he saved the film in the holder, went back home, days later was taking his film out of all his different film holders, and he came across the film that was smoking. And the film was ripped, right? So it looked something like this, or it probably felt something like this. And Chris McCaw was, at a juncture at that point, and he was like, "Well, what do I do?" Right? You obviously don't want your film ripped, and so typically when you're processing film in the dark and you see that, or you feel that something is like massively wrong with your film, like it's ripped, you more than likely would just throw it away and not continue processing it. Well, he decided to continue to process his film, and he did. And when it was done processing, this is what he came out with, right? What we're looking at is the sun being magnified through his camera lens as the sun is rising, and it actually burns a line in the film. This is like the silver and the gelatin melting off of the film. That's kind of freaking beautiful. And so he realized, like, oh, wow, this is right. I'm not just recording photographically the sun rising, but I'm also kind of recording the power of the sun and the intensity as it melts the film. And so he kind of, took this mistake and started to kind of backwards engineer it. And he created this whole series of images called sunburns out of it. So these are all images where the sun is physically burning through the surface of the film. So you'll see ones like this with a large streak. That's probably like, I don't know, maybe an hour, 2 hour long exposure. And then you'll see ones like this, where the landscape remains stable throughout the whole photograph, but there's multiple different suns that burn through it, right? It's not one streak, it's these dots. what he's doing here is he's opening the shutter, closing the shutter, opening the shutter, closing the shutter. And so all of the gaps in between is the shutter being closed, and each one where it's burnt is the shutter being opened. And so you'll see photos like that, and you'll have ones like, this one in this video right here where it's over the skyline of San Francisco, and it's maybe an hour in between each photo. So he leaves he might leave his camera set up for 12 hours, and over that 12 hours, he'll take, multiple photos without the camera moving. He's also done photos like this one right here, where this is, during summer, I think, in northern Alaska, where the sun's not setting for the whole day. So this is maybe a 24-hour long exposure. When the sun almost sets, in the middle of the night, it gets lower to the horizon, but it never goes below the horizon. Something super cool that I thought I'd share with you. And while this isn't digital, it is super cool to just kind of think about, what we're doing in photography and what we're recording. I don't know. It's kind of cool. So this artist's name is Chris McCaw, and the project is called Sunburn. You can find all sorts of videos about him on the internet. There's probably a ton right here. Super cool guy, and just kind of a cool little lesson of don't discount mistakes, right? Mistakes can sometimes be massive opportunities for learning. All right. I hope you all found this interesting, and I'll talk to y'all soon.